Welcome back to Comic Strip Tease. I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we're talking the art of comics.
We are going to talk about our favorite books from 2018.
It was a good year for books, and hopefully we have some good ones to share with you today. Okay, so we each have 5 books from this past year that we'd like to review. We're going to start from the bottom. We're going to go 5 to 1. So Dave, what's your 5th best book of the year?
My 5th best book of the year would be a DC book, Batman Damned.
Ooh, the Batwang.
Yes, the infamous Batwing. So, the first issue came out magazine size format, which I love.
I love it too.
I was shocked how many people didn't understand the concept there are comics that are printed magazine size. I thought that was really odd.
People are dumb.
It's just weird though, because some of the most famous Marvel comics ever are magazine size.
Yeah.
But hey, Anyway, yeah, it's written by Brian Azzarello. Lee Bermejo is the artist, who's fantastic.
Yeah, he's like next level good.
Yeah, I just thought the first issue blew me away. Basically, the Joker's dead, and it looks like Batman killed him, but Batman doesn't remember, and Constantine narrates it. I didn't even think about Wayne's junk in it when I read it the night before, but it's the first book from DC's Black Label. It's a bi-monthly book. There's only going to be 3 issues.
I think the Black Label idea, which is kind of allowing creators to not worry about continuity and just do something cool and original, I think that's such a fantastic idea, and kind of goes back to the Elseworlds stories that we used to see.
Yeah.
I just think it's good stuff, and I hope that any controversy over showing male genitalia doesn't...
It's a mature label, people.
Right.
It's mature. Be mature about it.
Right.
Matthew, what's your 5th best book of 2018?
Well, for me, this is another DC book, a continuation of a series that started in 17, which is The Wildstorm. And this book is by Warren Ellis, who is kind of using this as an opportunity to reshape and sort of reboot the entire Wildstorm universe. And it's drawn by John Davis Hunt, who has a very clean style, but he's very good at showing kinetic action, and he's definitely as good at sort of interpreting Warren Ellis's science techno stuff that he's always throwing into things.
I agree. I was just going to say that he might be the person that fits Ellis's style the best.
Well, and Ellis has a big history with Wildstorm. He did the Stormwatch DV8. He converted Stormwatch into the Authority, which I think was one of the most groundbreaking series. I think he's probably the best science fiction writer in comics. Just a step ahead of everybody else in terms of what the technology and what the social ramifications are of that technology.
If you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend at least checking out the first issue.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yep. All right, my number 4 pick for 2018 is a Dark Horse book. Actually, I'm wearing a Dark Horse shirt today, so that's is The Seeds.
Oh, that's good stuff.
That one was written by Ann Nesenti and drawn by David Aja.
He's pretty awesome, and really on this book especially. I mean, he's knocking it out of the park on this.
Yeah, I have always liked that guy's art, and when I saw that he was doing this book through Dark Horse, I was very intrigued, and then when I read the first issue, it kind of blew me away. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's under Dark Horse's Berger Books imprint, and if you don't know, Karen Berger was the sort of the architect of the entire Vertigo line at DC, and then I think there was like a shakeup in editorial or something, and she ended up leaving and started this line at Dark Horse.
So it's got basically 2 storylines going on. One is there's like this alien celestial embryo bank, and one of the aliens kind of falls in love with a human. But then there's also, you've got this journalist who's digging deeper into what's going on in their society, because there's basically 2 societies, like you're on one side of the wall or the other.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like, Germany, like, the east and west side of the wall.
But if she is onto what she thinks she's onto, it could actually destroy humanity. So she has to decide, does she continue to be the journalist she's supposed to be, or does she let it go? But definitely a cool book. Matt, what's your number 4?
All right, for my 4th pick, I'm picking a book from Image. It came out from Brian K. Vaughan and Marcos Martin. It's called Barrier. And what was kind of unique about this book is it started as an online book, and then they printed it, but it's on an oversized format. And then because it was originally built for online, it has a horizontal format. So you kind of get these all widescreen cinematic pages, which I love. Yeah, and it just tells a real personal story too. It kind of stars two characters, one from each side of the border, and about these two kind of coming together. And that doesn't mean like in a love story kind of way, but just two human beings kind of connecting in the middle of, extreme circumstances and figuring out a way to solve problems together with sort of this backdrop of an alien invasion or alien connection.
And I better brush up on your Spanish.
Yeah, that's another thing that's real interesting is that you have characters that are from the United States and from Mexico, and they're speaking in their native languages. So when they do, they don't translate it. There isn't like the little asterisk at the bottom that says they're speaking Spanish, but you can still read in English. But I don't feel lost at all. Somehow, despite not being able to read every word balloon in the book, I still could completely follow along, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I thought it added legitimacy to the storytelling, that it felt more real that way.
Sure.
So I thought it was cool. It was, 5 issues, I think?
5 issues, and then what else was kind of interesting is they released them all 1 week at a time. So it was kind of like the binge reading type thing. I just thought it was a really interesting approach. It did something different with format, it did something different with delivery, and then it was just a really great story on top of it.
All right, my number 3 for 2018 was Shanghai Red.
That's a great title.
It is written by Christopher Sabella and drawn by Josh Hickson. It's an image book. It's one that is a 5-issue miniseries, and I was really looking forward to it when it was solicited. It's totally my wheelhouse.
Right.
Art was definitely up my alley, and if you haven't seen our image original art video, you should watch it, because I mentioned Shanghai Red in there because I got one of the pages from him.
Which is beautiful.
This one I was onto right away, and for me it totally delivered. It was 5 issues. The trade paperback just came out, so if you missed it, you should pick that up.
I think the art's gorgeous. It has that sort of gritty realism to it. Mm-hmm. It just feels lived in. It's scratchy, but yet still has all of those real life shadows. Really great stuff. Super
cool storytelling. The basic premise of it is there's the main character's name is Jack. It actually ends up being a female. It takes place in the late 1800s in Portland, Oregon. People literally were shanghaied a lot, where they got tricked into getting onto a boat, or they owed somebody money, and then they basically became a slave on that ship.
Right.
And she woke up, and they all assumed she was a male, and she was the slave on the ship. And she needs to figure out how to get off that ship and get back to her family.
Right. All right, for my third best comic of the year, I'm going with a classic. It's actually a reprint. It's Corto Maltese, The Golden House of Samarkand. And this is a reprint of one of Corto Maltese's adventures, written and drawn by Hugo Pratt. This is the first time it's been in English. I'm a huge Corto Maltese fan, and there's been books in print in English for many years, but they never got around to these later volumes. Kind of has this great adventure where he's kind of on the Silk Road looking for a treasure, and he's got a doppelganger that's out in the desert that he's tracking.
Which was that was great.
Yeah.
It was just a cool part of that story. I loved it.
So Corto Maltese, he's sort of a pirate, seafaring captain,
adventurer, ladies man,
right, from the early 1900s. So this is another historic piece, and his adventures always take him across the world, and this one just felt like, as to me, one of the best. Hugo Pratt, when he was earlier in his career, he was a lot tighter. So here he's kind of an old man, he's kind of in the last 10 years of his life, and it's a little sloppier or a little more rushed, but the storytelling is so great, and there's still this energy about it and flow to the way all the characters are, and just in those fantastic stark black and white.
Try Corto. It's really good. And I kind of had to fight Matt, and he won because I wanted to have it in my top 5 too, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I love those books just as much as he does. On to my number 2. It's another image book.
Yep.
Gideon Falls.
That one I wanted to put on my list as well. I think it's without a doubt the best new series of the year.
This one is written by Jeff Lemire, drawn by Andrea Sorrentino.
Very nice.
That title started in 2018. It's kind of another book that has 2 storylines going on it.
Sure,
kind of like
it does.
Teased
Yes.
does. There's this alcoholic, kind of washed up priest replacing a dead priest, and then he starts seeing this crazy black barn out of nowhere.
Yeah, kind of like a vision or a dream.
Yeah, so he doesn't know. He's drunk half the time, so you don't know if it's because of that or if he's actually seeing things. And then there's another character who's actually seeing a psychiatrist who's definitely crazy, or everyone assumes he is because he digs in the city's garbage and has all this stuff in his apartment.
Yeah, he's kind of collecting these things, like you don't really know why at first, but you start realizing what's happening. And then those two stories connect.
Yeah, because he sees the black barn as well and no one believes him. But the way it all starts to come together, super cool. The art is beautiful. Sorrentino's definitely one of my favorites from the last 10 years. He's an amazing artist, and Lemire, everything he does is cool.
Yeah, he has just been gold the whole way. I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff too.
He is.
For big publishers and self-published stuff.
Yeah, that book was an easy top 5 for me. Yeah. All right, Matt, what's your number 2 book?
This is definitely one of my favorites in like multiple years. Like it isn't even just from this year. It is a volume from Archaea, which is called The Sons of El Topo. And it's written by Jodorowsky, who's a famous filmmaker and did a lot of the writing with Mobius on the Inkle and other humanoids books. And it's drawn by Jose Ladrone, who's one of my personal favorites. I think he's fantastic. Loved him back. He started drawing like Cable a lot, like forever ago.
God, I forgot about that.
And it had kind of a Kirby style.
That's right.
But he's really evolved into a super realistic, really tight drawing style. In this book, it almost looks like photographs. It's so cool. But anyways, this book is connected to the original El Topo movie that Jodorowsky did, which was done like 30, 40 years ago, which is sort of this surreal Spanish language film that really, kind of became one of the first sort of midnight cult movies.
Yeah, it was the launch of that whole thing.
And this is him coming back to that character and kind of coming back to that story. And after reading it, I was like so blown away by it. I think it's one of the best stories I've read in years. It's kind of this tale of, it takes place like in the Old West. And it's this man in black who's almost seen like the devil, kind of comes into these towns and ends up making a connection with a woman who's about to be married off on her own, and you kind of are seeing the debts that this guy has paid over his life, and sort of the death and destruction that's followed him. It just kind of has all those great Western tropes.
It's a dark story too, definitely mature.
Yeah, but it's worth the read. It is a hardcover, so it's a little more expensive than a regular comic, but it's worth every penny. I think it's one of the best books of the year. So Dave, we're down to your number 1 book of the year.
This was hard to do, this top 5 thing. Just getting top 10 was hard.
I know.
But we narrowed it down to 5, and there's some other books that I really want to put in there. But my favorite book, 2018, Hot Lunch Special by Aftershock.
That's fantastic. I loved that book too. I'm surprised it's your number 1, but it's such a cool book. I love it.
The more I thought about it, the more it was just the book that I thought about the most as far as wanting to reread it and read the next issue. So that's why it shot up to number 1 for me. It's totally my wheelhouse. It's this gritty crime noir, and it actually takes place in the Midwest, where we are. We're in Wisconsin. This book takes place in Minnesota, Wisconsin, which not a lot of stories do.
Right.
I think that was another appealing part of it, but it's about this family that owns this distribution company puts out the vending machine lunches.
Right.
But it's old school mafia crime kind of stuff, and it's so gritty. I really want to see this on the big screen or in a TV show or something. It'd be awesome.
I think we kind of have, because to me it's almost like season 4 of Fargo.
It is Fargo. If you haven't watched that, you should watch that. Yeah, it's definitely like that. You're right.
Right. It's that sort of Midwestern mafia, and it just has a lot of those same beats, the same location. So I'd be shocked if they weren't inspired by that a little bit.
Such a cinematic story. It's written by Elliot Rahal, and Jorge Fornes is the artist. Loved it. You should check it out if you haven't yet.
It's one of the best books for sure.
I'm ready.
Okay, big drum roll. So my number 1 comic of 2018 is a little ash can sized book from Matt Kindt. It's Mind Management, Colorblind. This is a book that he self-published. It is obviously connected to the Mind Management series that he did at Dark Horse a few years ago. And he's got an art style that some people don't immediately gravitate to, because it's a little scratchier, looks a little more maybe rushed.
He's a writer who is a really good storyteller. and he just wants to tell a story. You can just tell it just flows right out of him, and he's just drawing it. I just picture him just drawing it quickly to get his story out because he just wants to tell it.
Right. You know, this book is unique too, not just in the size that it was this little mini, but it was printed. It was called Rizzo printing, but it sort of sprays ink onto the page. And he's doing some really interesting stuff with how that color is used. Like, it isn't just for the color, you know, just for sake of coloring the thing, but there's sort of secret messages that are in the color, and it kind of adds to that, the whole flavor of what Mind Management was, which was this secret organization that sort of had secret motives, you know, for kind of keeping the world in order.
Yeah, and the single comics, if you got those, they had all these little extra notes and different things that weren't included in the reprints.
Yeah, they were kind of hidden on the spine, or, you know, tucked in the letters column, like, you know,
such a cool
secret
concept.
letters. Yeah, it just has this sort of secret decoder ring type vibe to it.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I would say, honestly, I think might be the best single issue I've ever read. You know, just a single, right, just, you know, after 20, 30 years of reading comics, I can't think of another book that in, you know, whatever this is, 20 pages, told such a cool, unique, done-in-one story. You know, you don't have to have read anything before it or after it. It's just like this perfect little story.
Yeah, I read it too. I thought it was very cool. All right, so what are those other books that were like right there for you, but like I said, it was hard to narrow it down to 5, but what were the other honorable mentions?
Well, one of the first books that comes to mind is Mark Millar's Magic Order, and this one's really cool. It has kind of an adult version of Harry Potter with a secret order that's running the world, and they're all magicians and have all these special powers. Just has a cool political and class system vibe to it. Another cool book was from Vault Comics, and it's called These Savage Shores. This had a really great period piece tone. It has to deal with some vampires, some historical fiction, all mixed in this sort of exotic locale, and it just has a great adventure quality to it. On a blank. Oh!
Purdy. This is definitely a book that is in the top 10 for me, for sure. Image book by Kickley, used to be known as Sam Heady. We both like that book a lot.
Yeah, and we got to meet him, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That was my number 6, so it almost made my list.
Batman White Knight by Sean Murphy. He's a really good storyteller too. He writes and draws everything. I like that series. It was a 7-issue series from DC. Yeah, some other stuff also for me was Highest House, IDW book, magazine size.
That was really cool.
Not a lot happened in it, as you pointed out sometimes, but it still had a really cool vibe, and Mike Harry, I think, wrote it. It's super cool. And Dead Rabbit, only 2 issues out. If you look that up, it was an Image book that got shut down because of copyright infringement, but I love the first 2. It was really sad.
It was really good.
Yeah.
And then another book was the latest Witchfinder from this year.
Dark Horse.
Yeah, it was drawn by D'Israeli, or Matt Brooker, and it just had a really great look and vibe to it.
Killer Be Killed, Image book. Always loved Ed Brubaker.
Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, Sean Phillips, so.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our best of list. Hope you guys got something out of it, and we'll see you next time.
Leave some comments below for us. If you agree or disagree with us, we'd love to hear from you.
If you like the content of this video, please drop a thumbs up below to support the channel, and make sure to click subscribe to see future content.